smell that Indian food coming in. I'm so hungry.
Oh, I tell you,
That stuff smells so good.
I was laughing because I usually eat before I get here, and every time I pull in the parking lot, it smells so good.
I know, doesn't it?
And I just got a reference, Justin is a monthly contributor to their revenues.
Yeah, oh, it's so good.
And then somebody told me that the other one, wasn't it you that said the one in the old BK? Or was it Diane?
Might have been me,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're good too.
Yeah, they're good. We've had that.
And now we're getting 2 Italian restaurants.
Yeah.
I know.
2. Count them, 2.
Yeah, it's funny that it looks like the Richards has been cleared out. It looks like the inside has been gutted. I don't know if they're finishing inside or not. I haven't seen any activity that way. But the for sale sign is still out front. And I thought this was a done deal, so I assume they're still coming.
Well, the rumor's been going on since last year sometime. It's always up.
Well,
Yeah.
I heard that just before the pandemic, a lot of this was set. And then that just delayed it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
staffing issue.
Yeah.
September is the projected date.
September?
For that first one. And the other one's out of Fort Wayne,
Mishawaka.
or Mishawaka, yeah. Fort Wayne is the Richards,
Not going.
Yeah.
and then Mishawaka is the other one.
Fort
And I-
Wayne, so
Is it Fort Wayne?
Fort Wayne.
Fort Wayne's Richards.
is the
Vino.
Salvatore's.
Salvatore's.
Yeah, Richard.
A friend of mine is neighbors with the family that owns the Salvatore.
Oh, yeah.
They're definitely coming.
Yeah, I heard that it was done, but I think it was just before,
They did
Our
several
virus showed
Richards, or a couple of different Richards in Fort Wayne as well.
well, I'm talking about the old Richards restaurant when I
Yeah,
said
they
Richards.
did, they bought multiple Richards.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Tell them an important source in Warsaw wants them to have seafood Alfredo on it. I'll be happy to get
I
it.
just want
Oh,
to
gosh,
find a
guys.
restaurant where I can eat veal.
Almost late. Good evening, everyone. Approval of the April 11 minutes.
Mr. President, I've read those minutes, and if there are no further questions or comments, I move to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Jim. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone in opposition? Justin, unfinished business.
There's none.
New business, 0501, 22, final, Harvest Ridge. Justin.
Yeah, so before you have the Harvest Ridge subdivision PUD, and just as a reminder, this came before you on February 14th. It was approved with a favorable recommendation to council to bring the preliminary PUD ordinance to the council. It went before the council on March 7th and was approved in general terms and referred back to the Plan Commission for final approval. It was also reviewed by the Tech Review Committee on March 23rd. So that kind of gives you a background of this PUD. With that said, there are still a couple outstanding things that we would like to see cleared up before the plat is recorded, but we can still move forward with the approval of the final plat this meeting, and we can kind of go into detail of how we could make that motion and approve it contingent on a couple small things that will be cleared up hopefully the next couple weeks. So.
That'll be handled internally by the planning.
Correct.
Mailing went out.
Yes. So the final plat for the Harvest Ridge subdivision PUD was submitted in a timely fashion and reviewed for its conformity to the subdivision control ordinance and section 13.2 regarding planned unit developments. The petitioner wishes to subdivide 30 acres into 91 lots containing a mix of attached and detached single-family housing units. There's a green space that equates to 10,200 square feet that will be set aside for a neighborhood park. It is the opinion of the planning department that you should give the final plat approval for the Harvest Ridge PUD. As a reminder, the petitioner will have to submit bonds for any outstanding public infrastructure, so that's one of those things that we would deal with at the planning department level. You guys could move forward with the approval if you choose to tonight, but we would hold the plat until they presented us with the bonds and they were reviewed by the city engineer. There's also a couple small environmental things that we still need to clear up with the SWIP before that's final. So we'd ask that a motion that you make tonight reflect that it's approved contingent on the bonds and the completion of the SWIP. And if Aaron has any other additions to that, would be my request. So.
There's no additions. I can elaborate on what you mean by SWIP here when the
Yeah.
time is right, if that's helpful.
The green space, that was new, or I thought it was.
That was added on the preliminary. That was a request Diane made. So they added that green space.
Right, okay, but it wasn't on the original as I recall, right? We got that added, or Diane requested it, it was added later. Good, okay. Any other comments?
Well, can he explain strictly what the SWIFT is, just educate us?
Yeah, so SWIP is the acronym for
Well, say that, what is it?
SW3P or SWPPP.
Okay.
Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan.
Okay.
And that is an element of our Indiana Department of Environmental Management. It's the piece that satisfies a state law for disturbances both during construction and post-construction, mostly relative to erosion and sediment pollutions, but also it captures additional pollutants and environmental concerns within that same body. So any projects that's going to disturb more than 1 acre has to develop a SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. It has to be presented to our MS4 department at the city or stormwater utility. They're one and the same. And there's a specific guidelines that IDEM has that has to be met with the SWIP. And a couple of those we weren't quite satisfied with the current design having enough information on it that we felt comfortable with, so we're working with the designer, or I should say our stormwater department is working with them to, for one specifically, to get a coordination with the Army Corps of Engineers with their opinion of whether they want to see more information or protection done to the wetland area, and it also involves the Fish and Wildlife. It's just we want to see them coordinate with them, get an opinion from them to have on record, and make sure it doesn't require any other special methods for these 5. It really involves the 5 lots that are adjacent to what was delineated to be wetlands during the design.
And you're comfortable that a successful conclusion will be reached?
Yes, I am very comfortable that they're being cooperative on it. It was one of those things our state changed it. They repealed, it used to be all called Rule 5, if you heard that term, but in December, Rule 5 was repealed, and then they adopted what's called a general construction stormwater permit. That way, it's not permitted by rule, it's permitted by, I guess, adopted statute instead of administrative rule.
Okay.
And the requirements changed, and that's what in a nutshell tripped them up. There was some additional requirements in the new permitting requirement that they didn't have, such as coordination with Fish and Wildlife Agency.
Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation. All right, any other questions or comments before we open it to the public?
Didn't we have a green barrier between Menards and the subdivision that the residents requested at the first public hearing?
So there already exists a buffer. There's a 50-foot swath of land between Menards and
Right.
the new development. They're leaving a large chunk of existing trees on the east side of that tangent that comes down, and they did propose a vegetative buffer on that west side as well along Menards. It gets tricky because as a city, it's hard to, we don't require screening from residential to residential. And also, if we do plant those, if we required a developer to plant trees in the backyards of that strip of housing, somebody could move into the house and just cut it down. So we'd rather see those be put on the commercial side anyway. So there is that swath of land there. We'd hope that maybe they could plant a few more trees in that Menards section. We might encourage them, but we were assured by the developer, and maybe they might be going into more detail, but the visibility to the back of the store will be somewhat limited by the density of housing and the existing vegetation. So that's how those discussions kind of went. And
Has there been a conversation with Menards about trees or no?
We talked to the developer and the Menards are linked.
Okay.
So the Menards is the developer.
They're one and the same, huh?
So, yeah, so we'd like to still encourage them to do that, but they did preserve some existing trees and propose additional trees to be planted on there.
Yeah, because the preliminary plat that we saw at Consul had the trees, the green space and the trees drawn in all along there.
And that hasn't gone away. That was a supplemental document. We should have attached it today, but it did have it highlighted what their vegetative buffer that they were going to maintain and create, so.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we.
Yeah, that
weren't-
hasn't gone away. That's still part
Okay.
of it. Yep.
Thank you. That'll close it for us. We'll open it to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this petition?
I'm Tom O'Neill on behalf of Menard Incorporated. For the record, our address is 5101 Menard Drive, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 54703. Again, I'm here on behalf of Menard to support the project. I'm filling in tonight for Nick Brenner, who has been working with staff to date, but he had a meeting conflict this evening. I'm familiar historically with the project and with the site, so I feel comfortable speaking on behalf of Menards and fielding any questions that you folks have. We think that the existing buffer should be maintained behind the store as it is, and we expect that as the individual home sites develop, they too will be installing new trees in the rear of their properties as those properties develop with single family. And there's a significant vertical drop that's that occurs down to the Menards store site. The transition from the residential down to the store will help sort of inset the store development and alleviate a lot of the view corridor concerns in our estimation. With that, I don't really have anything else on behalf of the project. Just be here to answer any questions that the Planning Commission has.
Any questions? I think we ran it pretty well through the preliminary. It was thoroughly reviewed at the preliminary, I can assure you. Most of the questions, I think, were brought up and addressed between then and now, because Justin added a few more things that I think are wonderful. So as far as I'm
Understood.
concerned, I think it's
Okay,
come
thank you.
together very well. Council has been involved since the beginning, so it's good to see. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, son.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Closed to the public. I know, Diane, it's ridiculous when there's only one
I know,
person
we
in
have
the
to say
audience, but
You know,
I'm sure
saying that.
somebody will chastise me if I don't go through the motion.
We have to do it at city council as well.
Speaking of motions, Justin, you want to clarify, you wanted I'm not sure I
Maybe
can
Aaron
pronounce
should
it,
make the
Swift?
motion.
I'd like to make the motion that Plan Commission approve the final plat with the condition of a satisfactory bond being provided, as well as continuing to work with our stormwater department to get the construction general stormwater permit issued.
Thank you, Aaron. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Rick. All those in favor of the motion as quoted?
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? That carries unanimously. Justin, anything else? One more motion.
If there's no further questions or comments, I move to adjourn.
So moved. Seconded by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned.
Okay. You might be a house meeting before you could have people.
Hey, Justin?
Were they signing somewhere?
Be pretty quiet.
I should come.